Welcome to Stoned Stories with me, Paige. How are you? Whether you need an escape or just a moment to unwind, you're in the right place. Everyone loves a story, and everyone needs a break. So sit back and let me take you on a gemological journey. And while we're at it, let's get stoned. What if I told you that you could hold a gemstone that didn't just come from deep within the earth, but may have traveled through space? A gem born in fire, carried by volcanoes, and sometimes delivered by meteorites older than our planet's surface. Today, we're talking about Peridot, a gemstone with a luminous green glow, a history tied to ancient empires, and a scientific story that reaches all the way into the Mantle and beyond. This is space-age Peridot. Now, before anyone starts questioning my pronunciation here, the T in Peridot can be pronounced or not. Either way is correct. The silent T is derived from the original French pronunciation, and to this day, often the chosen pronunciation by jewelers. But T or no T, it is okay. Accepting the T is more of an American variation, and it's all a matter of preference. So, all the pronunciation police standing up in the back, sit down, take a puff, chill out, and let's talk about Peridot. Today's stone of choice is not your average gemstone. Most gemstones get their color from trace impurities, tiny amounts of elements, like chromium or iron, that tint an otherwise colorless crystal. Peridot doesn't work that way. Its green color is built in. Peridot is a gem-quality form of a mineral olivine, a crystal made primarily of magnesium, iron, and silica. Now pause, because if you're like me, you are wondering, what is the difference between a gem-quality form and a mineral? And it's actually pretty simple. Gemstones are pretty, and minerals are not. And I was not completely satisfied with that answer, so let's go a little deeper. Minerals are inorganic geological substances. They have a specific chemical composition, and they're valued in their raw, natural, and sometimes rough state. Gemstones, however, are visually appealing. They have high clarity, specific minerals that are exceptionally beautiful and durable. So if you're still a little confused, all gems are mineral, but not all minerals are gems. Well, let's get back to Peridot. The mineral iron that makes usually up to 15% of Peridot crystals is what gives it the natural signature green. Not a hint of green, not a variation. Green is the only color Peridot can be. From yellow-green to deep olive, every shade comes from the same internal chemistry. And here's what makes that exciting. When you look at Peridot, you're not seeing a surface effect. You're seeing the structure of Earth itself, expressed as color. And that blows my mind. You see, most gemstones have what is called a surface effect, or an optical phenomenon, that confines the appearance of a stone to the outermost layer of that stone. This is why most treatments, like oil or surface coating a gemstone on its outer layer, can cause any of those cracks or internal inclusions in the stone to disappear. Peridot is different, though. Its color is consistent throughout the stone. So when it's being formed or cut into beautiful little gems, it rarely needs to be treated to improve its already dense color. Peridot differs from other gems in many ways, and another clear uniqueness is how Peridot forms. Most gemstones form in Earth's crust. However, Peridot does not. It's actually one of the only two gemstones, the other being diamond, that are created outside of Earth's crust. Outside being deeper down. It forms really deep in the mantle, between 20 to 55 miles below the surface of the Earth, and that's a place of extreme heat, pressure, and very slow geological movement. Somehow, crystals grow there when magnesium and iron-rich magma cools. But how do these little green baddies reach us? They don't rise gently. When tectonic activity or deep volcanic eruptions occur, Magma acts as an elevator for the Olivine to catch a ride up to the surface with basaltic, rich magma, and then settle in volcanic rock after it begins the cooling period above ground. In some cases, Peridot crystals are carried up inside volcanic rocks called xenoliths. That is just a really fun word for a chunk of the mantle itself, ripped loose and shot upward. Wow, okay, think about that. When you hold a peridot, this little green gemstone, you might be holding a fragment of Earth's interior, something humans will likely never reach directly. I really want to know why some volcanoes have more peridot and basalt present in their eruptions while their volcanoes just don't. And overall, I found a lot of very scientific answers. But they also painting a bit of an image in my brain. So essentially the volcanoes that are really deep and tap into Earth's mantle, these have more peridot present. Volcanoes that are in a subduction zone and are more shallow aren't able to bring up pieces of Earth's mantle or peridot. And it kind of brings me to the classic pimple situation, okay? The typical aggravated blackhead that you got, on the side of your nose. It might still erupt a little bit, but once you pop it, the hole closes up, all the gunk is out, and it's not that deep. A whitehead, though, that really pesky, yucky infected pimple that pops and then just keeps getting worse. All of a sudden, you've got blood, you got oil, it's coming out, and you have to really pop all of that buildup out from deep within your pore where the skin layer is at its weakest. Yeah, you get it, okay? That's it. It's the volcanoes like your whitehead pimple that are just pulling up pieces of peridot and settling on the surface. Okay, let's go ahead and move on from the acne metaphor, but you're picturing it. You get it. Peridot has been known and loved for thousands of years, and the ancient Egyptians called it the gem of the sun. They mined it on an island in the Red Sea, known today as Zabargad, but once called Topazios. Interestingly, this is where the confusion begins. For centuries, peridot was often mistaken for other green gemstones, even for topaz, which is not typically green. But some historians believe that famous emeralds worn by Cleopatra herself may have actually been peridot. We talked a lot about our girl Cleopatra and her emerald fascination in the last episode. Imagine that, though. One of the most iconic symbols of ancient luxury, and possibly going misunderstood for generations. But the Egyptians knew one thing for certain. Peridot glowed. It was said to shine even in low light, making it easier to find at night. And that glowing, almost otherworldly green, gave it protective qualities and folklore. It is believed to ward off evil spirits, to bring peace, to protect its wearer from the terrors of the dark. I am buzzing in my seat right now. To imagine a piece of Earth's mantle, I just can't get over that part. Draped over the neck of Cleopatra, providing protection in the darkness, all while being completely misunderstood for centuries. How kind of powerful is that little sentiment? Ancient Egyptians were using peridot as their nightlight, and it worked. They just didn't know what to call it. And today, peridot continues to be the national gem of Egypt. So clearly, they got it right, and they're standing by it. Now, let's leave Earth for a moment. Woo! Because peridot isn't just found underground. It's also been found in meteorites, specifically in rare, stony iron meteorites called pallasites. Oh yeah, that's right. These are space gems, okay? These pallasites contain crystals of olivine, that's the same mineral as peridot, embedded in a metallic matrix of iron and nickel. That is awesome, and they are so stunning. Slices of pallasite look like stained glass windows, glowing green crystals suspended in shimmering metal. But there's even more of a mind-bending part. These crystals formed in space. Most scientists believe that pallasites come from the boundary between the core and the mantle of ancient, shattered planetary bodies. Holy shit. In other words, Peridot may have formed inside planets that no longer exist, destroyed billions of years ago, their fragments just drifting through space until one little piece fell to Earth. So when we talk about space-age peridot, we're not exaggerating. This gem is literally extraterrestrial. It's alien crystals, people. These peridot-filled palladites are rare. Not every meteorite falling to Earth contains these extraterrestrial gems. Today, palladic meteorites make up less than 1% of all known meteorites. So this is rare, but it's also very real. Let's talk about what makes peridot so visually striking again. Unlike diamonds, which rely on brilliance and fire, peridot has a softer, almost velvety glow. Gemologists often describe it as oily or buttery, but not in a negative way, as a smooth, rich saturation of color. More like oily and buttery, not oily and buttery. You get it. It also has a relatively high birefringence, and that is a gemologist word right there. Birefringence means that when light enters the stone, it splits into two rays. And if you look closely, especially in larger stones, you can sometimes see a doubling of facets inside the gem. This is not what the average person is looking for, especially when they're staring into one of these entrancing stones. But light refraction is one of the key clues that a gemologist uses when identifying a stone. And peridot can often be identified with the naked eye because of its unique ability to project a shadow on itself when you look inside the crystal structure. It's very subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's like the gem is slightly out of phase with itself, while also making it look deeper and deeper the longer you stare into it. Then, there are also inclusions. An inclusion is also known as internal characteristics, such as minerals, liquids, gases, or fractures trapped inside the stone during its formation. Peridot often contains tiny disc-like inclusions known as lily pads. They look like little water droplets or ripples frozen inside the stone. To a gemologist, these aren't flaws. They're fingerprints, proof of natural origin, clues to the conditions in which the crystal formed. Okay, I have to have my inclusion talk again. Can we not all take a lesson from gemologists here? Inclusions are not mistakes. They are not faults. Inclusions are characteristics, personality traits. They add to the overall gem instead of detract from the overall interest of the piece. The next time you feel like one of your inclusions lowers your value, think like a gemologist. Use that personal inclusion to raise your value. Every piece of you is interesting, and every inclusion just makes you you. Gemology is good for the soul, and I will stand on that, okay? Gosh. Now, the next talking point is one of my favorite aspects to the story of Peridot, and that's because it takes us to one of my favorite places on Earth, Hawaii. If you're in Hawaii, you're standing in one of the most fascinating peridot environments on Earth. The islands are volcanic in origin, formed by magma rising from deep within the mantle. And in some places, peridot crystals have been brought to the surface in lava flows. There's even a place known as the Green Sand Beach on the Big Island, where tiny olivine crystals give the sand its distinctive green hue. The Big Island, being the geological youngest of the Hawaiian archipelago, remains the most raw and volcanic to this day, with 3 active volcanoes and 2 dormant volcanoes, making up the island. Hawaii's volcanoes also produce incredible amounts of basalt, peridot's natural bestie. Every eruption is different, though, and one volcano might erupt with high-density peridot, and then the next eruption might have very little, and contain almost solely basalt rock. However, when eruptions do contain high levels of peridot, and the magma makes it near the coastline, something amazing happens. Over the course of decades, rock, coral, and crystal is broken down over the coastline by Pacific Ocean waves. And the waves file down all of this incredible, dense material, Harsh lava fields can transform into fine black sand beaches. Coral, crystal, and rock all become sand particles. Fragments, although the same size, still vary in density, which means that as the waves wear away, coral and lava rock, the densest material, Peridot, remains at the surface of the beach and collects together in bays, caves, patches on the sand. Picture the bottom of a riverbed, the water constantly shaping and carving the bottom of the river. And while light sand or small rocks continue to get pulled down the stream, heavier and denser or thicker debris packs together, right? And it piles up in these low energy corners of the river. That is our Peridot situation. It's much denser than lava rock, coral, or other organic material. So while the Hawaiian waves reshape the sand patterns along the coast each day, Peridot clumps together. It remains mostly unmoved, and it forms beautiful green sand beaches. Imagine walking along a shoreline where the sand itself is made of gemstone fragments. That's Peridot, weathered by the ocean and scattered by time. A reminder that gemstones aren't just locked away in jewelry cases. They're part of the landscape. That's one of my favorite things about gemstones, this natural wonder that humans just so happen to think are really pretty and fun to wear. But at its core, it is natural. And the Hawaiian people saw great value in Peridot and associate it with the lava goddess herself, Pele. Peridot crystals are sometimes even called the tears of Pele. According to legend, these green gems represent the tears that she shed, often tied to stories of love, loss, and the fiery emotional nature attributed to her. Because Peridot forms in volcanic environments, this connection between the gemstone and the volcano goddess feels especially meaningful. Pele is deeply respected in Hawaiian culture, not just a mythological figure, but a spiritual presence. When we think of volcanoes in Hawaii, they are synonymous with Pele and her power. Legends say that Pele sailed to Hawaii from her homeland, Kahiki. She was accompanied by her family members and her sacred digging stick, Peoa. When their canoe reached the far north Hawaiian Islands, Pele and Peoa began digging the huge craters, looking for fire of life. Pele and her family needed to reach the fire of life in order to make their new home. And it was not until Pele reached the shores of Hawaii, today known as the Big Island, that she could sense her new home. Pele and her family were thrilled to reach the Halemaumau crater of Kilauea volcano. There they could not only feel, but they could see the fire of life, lava, with their own eyes. This would become the home of Pele. However, at the time, Aila'au was the dreaded god that ruled over the fire pits of Kilauea, and he would need to be overpowered before the Pele family could settle into their new hale. The forest eater Aila'au was powerful, but no match for the great and fiery Pele, and soon after her arrival, she defeated Aila'au, who was never seen again in the Hawaiian Islands. It was then that Pele claimed the land for her own, and began settling into the island life in ways of love, connection, and great power. Hawaiians today continue to honor Pele as the spirit behind both destruction of forests as well as creation of new land, and particularly the many black sand beaches that scatter around the shores of the Hawaii Islands. After Pele began to settle into her new way of life, she yearned for even more. She longed for love, and there were many stories of Pele's connection to both spirited gods as well as humble but courageous Hawaiian people. And in her most humanistic moments, the great goddess Pele herself has been said to cry. Her tears unlike those of this world. Instead, her tears solidify into sparkling gemstones, Peridot, and they settle in bays or pockets of coastline Pele herself visited. For gemologists and volcanologists, Peridot is one of the many reasons Hawaii is a geological masterpiece. But to the Hawaiian people, Peridot acts as the most vulnerable physical form from the all-powerful creator that rules the islands even today. So while Peridot has real geological origin, its connection to Pele gives it a layer of cultural and spiritual significance that goes well beyond science. How far has this stone come through a history of being mislabeled? And why does Peridot matter today? It's easy. In a world of lab-grown gems and highly engineered materials, Peridot offers something different. It's honest. Its color isn't added, it's inherent. Its journey isn't hidden, it's explosive, geological, and sometimes cosmic. Then it connects us to places we can't go. The Earth's mantle, ancient volcanic systems, even the interiors of long-destroyed planets. That's what makes it exciting, even if you're not a gem person. Because Peridot isn't just about jewelry. It's about origin. So here's the thought to leave you with. Peridot is a gemstone that blurs boundaries between Earth and space, between science and story, between what we can see and what we can only imagine. It's a reminder that beauty doesn't just come from perfection. It comes from journey, from pressure, from time, and sometimes from worlds that no longer exist. And the question is, if you held a Peridot in your hand and knew it might have come from deep within the Earth or from a planet that was shattered billions of years ago, would you see it as just a gemstone or as a piece of the universe itself? That's today's story. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next week for another stoned story.